I'm 77 years old, and I'm about to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable, maybe even angry. Everything you think you know about getting older is wrong. Not slightly wrong, completely wrong. And the hardest part to accept is this: the people who were supposed to prepare you for this truth never did. Your parents, your teachers, society itself. Some of them didn't know better. Some of them knew and stayed quiet. Either way, you were left believing a story that simply isn't true. My name is Peter David, and for the first 50 years of my life, I believed that same story. I believed I was doing everything right. I followed the rules. I worked hard. I delayed joy. I told myself I was being responsible. I built a career people respected. I bought the house I thought I was supposed to want. I earned the approval of people whose opinions I barely remember now. From the outside, my life looked successful. From the inside, I thought I had it all figured out. Then, when I was 52 years old, everything stopped. It wasn't dramatic at first. I was sitting in a meeting, listening to people argue about numbers that don't matter anymore. Quarterly projections, growth targets, deadlines. I remember feeling a strange pressure in my chest, like someone was tightening a belt around my ribs. The room began to tilt. Voices faded. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in a hospital bed, tubes in my arms, machines beeping, and my wife sitting in the corner with tears running down her face. The doctors called it a cardiac event. That's a polite way of saying my heart tried to end my life. They told me I was lucky, and at the time, I didn't understand how they could use that word. Lucky didn't feel right. I had just stared directly at my own mortality. I had just realized how thin the line is between later and never. But lying there, staring at a ceiling I didn't recognize, with nothing to distract me, something happened that changed everything. For the first time in my life, I had no schedule to follow, no emails to answer, no one expecting anything from me. And in that silence, a terrifying realization settled in. I hadn't really been living. I had been existing, moving from one obligation to the next, chasing goals I never stopped to question, checking boxes society handed me and calling it a life. I had spent decades on autopilot, convincing myself that someday, when things slowed down, I would finally start living the way I wanted. And then another thought hit me, heavier than the first. If I had died that day, if my heart hadn't restarted, what would I have left behind? A house that would be sold, a job title that would be replaced within weeks, a retirement account number that meant nothing to anyone else, achievements that would fade faster than I ever imagined. That question still haunts me, because here's the lie almost everyone tells themselves, and I told it better than most. I have time, I'll do it later, I'll slow down later, I'll live fully later, when I'm older, when things are easier, when I've earned it. I believed that lie for 52 years. And before I tell you what it cost me, you need to understand why I'm saying this now. I'm not here to sound wise. I'm not here to impress you. I'm here because I don't have unlimited time left, and neither do you. And there are truths you deserve to hear before the clock forces you to learn them the hard way. After I left the hospital, people expected me to feel grateful. And I did for a while. Grateful to be alive. Grateful for a second chance. Grateful that things went back to normal. But that phrase, back to normal, started to bother me more with every passing day. Because normal was the problem. Normal was what nearly killed me. Within weeks, the emails started again. The meetings, the deadlines. People congratulated me on my recovery and then quietly waited for me to return to the same pace, the same habits, the same life. And I almost did. That's how powerful momentum is. That's how easy it is to slip back into patterns you've spent decades building. But something inside me had shifted. I couldn't unsee what I had seen. I couldn't unknow what I now understood. You see, when you come that close to dying, the future stops being an abstract idea. It becomes real, finite, measurable. I stopped thinking in terms of someday and started thinking in terms of how many. How many summers do I realistically have left? How many conversations? How many mornings? How many chances to say what matters? And that's when another uncomfortable truth became clear. Most people are not living, they're postponing. I see it everywhere. Young people, old people, everyone in between. They all say the same things, just in different words. When I make more money, then I'll relax. When I reach this position, then I'll enjoy life. When the kids are older, then I'll travel. When I retire, then I'll finally do what I love. I said all of that, word for word. What no one tells you is that then is a moving target. It doesn't wait for you. It shifts the moment you get close. You reach one milestone, and another one appears immediately after. The promotion leads to more responsibility. More money leads to more expenses. More recognition leads to more pressure. And you tell yourself you're almost there, just not yet. Years pass like this, quietly, efficiently, without drama. I spent 30 years climbing a ladder I thought led somewhere important. I sacrificed weekends, missed dinners, postponed trips, told people I loved that I was busy. And when I finally reached the top, I realized something devastating. The ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. All that effort, all that discipline, all that sacrifice pointed in a direction I didn't actually care about. And here's the part that hurts the most. You can't climb back down and start over. Time doesn't refund itself. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care how hard you worked or how good your intentions were. People love to chase success. I know because I did. And I achieved what most people would call success. I became a partner at my firm. I bought the house. I earned respect. I checked every box I was told mattered. And none of it delivered what it promised. Success feels incredible for about 48 hours. After that, the feeling fades, the satisfaction disappears, and you're left looking for the next achievement, the next milestone, the next external proof that your life means something. It's a cycle that never ends, a hamster wheel disguised as ambition. I had a friend who embodied this better than anyone. Brilliant man, worked 70-hour weeks, built a business worth millions, rarely took time off, always said he'd slow down next year. Just one more year, just one more deal. Next year came, and then a stroke took him at 68. At his funeral, his son stood up and said something I'll never forget. He said, "My father was a successful man, but I barely knew him." That sentence landed harder than any medical diagnosis ever could. That's when I understood something most people learn too late. Your biggest regrets won't be about the things you did wrong. They'll be about the things you never did at all. And once you see that truth, you can't unsee it. When people talk about regret, they imagine dramatic failures, businesses that collapsed, investments that went wrong, big public mistakes. But that's not how regret actually works. At least not the kind that keeps you awake at night. The regrets that stay with you are quiet, ordinary, invisible to everyone else. I don't lie awake thinking about deals that didn't work out. Those don't bother me anymore. Money problems solve themselves or fade with time. What haunts me are the moments I never gave myself permission to have. The trip to Japan I kept postponing because work was too busy. The book I always wanted to write but never started because I was tired at night. The conversations I avoided because they felt uncomfortable. The relationships I assumed would always be there, waiting patiently while I handled more important things. They weren't. The most dangerous assumption you can make in life is that time is abundant, that the people you love will always be available, that there will always be another chance to fix things, to explain yourself, to show up properly. There won't. My father taught me that lesson in the hardest way possible. We had a complicated relationship, nothing dramatic, just distance, misunderstandings, unspoken words. I always believed we would deal with it later, when life slowed down, when work wasn't so demanding, when things were easier. I was 45 when he died. A heart attack. Sudden. No warning. One phone call and he was gone. And what crushed me wasn't what we argued about. It was all the Sundays I didn't call, all the dinners I skipped because I was tired, all the times I thought, I'll make it up next week. There was no next week. That's what time does. It closes doors quietly, without announcement. After my heart attack, I finally started paying attention. I stepped back from work, not because I didn't care anymore, but because I realized what it was costing me. I started saying no to things that drained me and yes to things I had postponed for decades. And in the 21 years since then, I've learned more about life than I did in the previous 52. What matters is embarrassingly simple. Time with people you love. Work that feels meaningful to you, not impressive to others. Experiences instead of possessions. Presence instead of productivity. Memories instead of milestones. When I was younger, I would have dismissed this as unrealistic advice. That's easy to say, I would have thought. I have responsibilities, bills, expectations, and you probably do. I'm not telling you to abandon your life. I'm telling you to stop sacrificing what matters most for things that won't matter at all. Here's a question I want you to sit with, not answer quickly. If you died tomorrow, would you be satisfied with the life you've lived so far? Not proud, not admired, not respected, satisfied? Most people avoid that question because they already know the answer. If the answer makes you uncomfortable, that's not a failure. That's awareness. That's the moment when change becomes possible. Because the real tragedy isn't realizing your life isn't aligned. The tragedy is realizing it when you no longer have the time to fix it. Every single day, you are trading your time for something. Status, money, comfort, approval, or meaning, connection, peace. You can't avoid the trade, you can only choose what you're paying for. I wake up every morning aware that I'm on borrowed time. Not in a fearful way, in a clarifying way. Most people don't feel that urgency until it's forced on them. They believe they're invincible. That serious reflection can wait. It can't. And the sooner you understand that, the richer your life becomes. At 73, I can say something I wish I had understood much earlier. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't pause for comfort, convenience, or clarity. Time passes, relentlessly, whether you notice it or not. And most of us, myself included, spend decades believing we have more than enough, believing that tomorrow exists in abundance, believing that life will eventually slow down and we can finally live properly. That's a lie, a comforting lie, but a lie nonetheless. I have grandchildren, 3 of them. When I watch them, I see patterns I recognized in myself when I was their age. Anxieties, distractions, endless chasing of things that don't satisfy. They get caught in storms of obligations, comparisons, and expectations, and I try to guide them, to share what I've learned. But their minds are in the chaos of today. They hear me, but they can't fully understand yet. Not because they don't want to, but because perspective comes with time, and they are still in the middle of their journey. This is why I'm telling you all of this now. Not as a lecture, not as a moralizing speech, but as a message you might carry with you. Because if you start noticing these patterns today, maybe, just maybe, you can avoid the mistakes I made. Avoid the regrets that linger. Avoid losing moments that cannot be reclaimed. Every single day, every hour, every minute, you are moving closer to an end that will come whether you are ready or not. And it's not just your own time. The time of your loved ones is passing too. Parents, siblings, close friends, spouses, children. One day, they won't be here. And no amount of work, planning, or preparation can bring those moments back. That trip you've been postponing, that phone call you've been putting off, that conversation you're afraid of having, that risk you think is too dangerous. That's what your regrets will be made of. The things you never did, not the things you tried and failed at. If I could speak to my 30-year-old self, I would say this: stop trying to impress people who don't matter. Stop sacrificing health and happiness for validation. Stop waiting for permission to live your life fully. Start creating experiences now. Start prioritizing the people and moments that matter most. Call your parents. Visit that faraway friend. Pursue the projects that excite you. Say the words you're afraid to say. Take the trips. Take the risks. Start now, not next year, not when everything aligns, not when I have more time or money. Now, because now is all you have for certain. I've been lucky enough to have health, family, and time, even if limited. Lucky enough to have learned these lessons before it was too late. I've traveled to places I always dreamed of. I've spent hours connecting with my children and grandchildren. I've forgiven old grievances. I've embraced joy and adventure, and I've expressed love countless times. And yet, I know my time is finite. Every morning I wake up aware that every day counts. Every day is a gift, and every day wasted is lost forever. Understanding the finiteness of life transforms everything. It sharpens your choices. It clarifies priorities. It makes work secondary to meaning, money secondary to connection, and possessions secondary to experiences. The realization that you cannot reclaim lost time forces you to live intentionally, purposefully, and honestly. And paradoxically, this urgency brings peace. It brings satisfaction. It brings richness to life, even when the clock is ticking. So here's the choice before you, and it's yours alone. Continue living the way you always have, chasing achievements, waiting for perfect conditions, postponing joy, or wake up and begin living today. Start noticing the people you love, the things that inspire you, and the moments that give your life meaning. Stop postponing your happiness. Stop allowing fear, habit, or societal pressure to dictate your time. Life is not a rehearsal. Time will not wait. I cannot live your life for you. I cannot make these decisions for you. But I can share my truths, born of mistakes, heartbreak, and reflection. And I can tell you this, the moment to act is now. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for certainty. Don't wait for comfort. Someday is today. Life is now. And every second wasted is a second you will never get back. The clock is ticking. What will you do with your time?